Breaking news with Based and Bougie. So guys, I saw this video as I was scrolling on my FYP of basically Nick Tenconi. I think this is an old video, but it's at University of Oxford, basically asking young students if they are socialists or if they are communists. And I was absolutely shocked. I was absolutely shocked that this is Oxford University. This is supposed to be the university of the brightest students in the world, by the way, and they can't define socialism. They can't define the thing that they say they support, which is insane. But before I begin, guys, if you guys are looking for cute jewelry, you can click the link in the bio. You can also use this code, but let's get right into it.
Oxford University asking students whether they identify as a socialist or as a capitalist. Are you a socialist or a capitalist?
Oh God, socialist.
Socialist?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, oh gosh, I'm a bit caught off guard. I would say
take your time.
I'm not a capitalist. So does that mean I have to be a socialist? I guess.
Let's start with what you don't like about capitalism.
Well, I'm a humanities student, and I feel like everything I've learned has taught me that.
So you don't like capitalism because you was told to not like capitalism? No. This is shameful. It's so embarrassing considering this is Oxford University and you're openly admitting in front of the camera that you believe in something because you was told to do so and not because you actually know what it means. But then again, it goes to show just how successful our education system has been at indoctrinating our children into just believing things without really asking. Like, we trust the education system so much. One thing about me, I'm going to ask a million questions.
Profitability as your main purpose is probably doesn't always make you a great person. Yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Maybe. Okay, that's interesting. How do you feel about the invention of the iPhone, for example?
Well, I've got one.
So have I. They're useful, aren't they?
They're pretty handy.
Do
Yeah.
you reckon the free market, and I'm not talking about unregulated Wild West American corporatism or monopolies, I'm not talking about that. The idea of capitalism is that you and I come up with an idea, so it's all about technological innovation, advances in how we think, what we do, creating products, supply and demand. We do that. It could be pharma, healthcare, whatever, saving lives, there you go, tanks to fend off Russians, whatever you're into. Do you think that comes from ideas, and then you and I going and doing that, and then we need a team and we need people to go and do the work, and then they hopefully achieve some sort of job satisfaction, get paid for it, and then as an idea, as a marketing, as an economics model, capitalism, that has some benefits, some pluses, at basic level?
Do I agree with that?
Do you agree that has some utility?
Yeah.
Sure. But you identify as a socialist?
I mean, I think it's quite a difficult thing to go and ask people, like, are you a socialist or a capitalist?
Why is it so difficult? I don't understand. If someone told me, am I a socialist, am I a capitalist, I would answer with speed. I am a capitalist because I believe in free markets, and essentially I believe in individual liberty. And these are supposed to be, what, Oxford students? Someone give me a place at Oxford, honestly, at this point. In fact, make me a lecturer at Oxford. Let me sit down and teach these kids the difference between socialism and capitalism, because this is shocking.
Or a capitalist, like, do you think that you can only be one or the other?
No, you can only ever be one or the other. You can't be both. For example, if we was to look at it from an economic standpoint, capitalism believes in the individual being able to go out and make their own money, whereas socialism believes in the government intervening in that person's ability to make money. But again, believing something that you truly can't even define.
Out socialist, no pay is ever enough, the unions rule, and a lot of Marxists I speak to say it's all about bringing the unions back, not about anarchy, it's about bringing the unions back and bringing down government, but the unions would become government by definition. So it's about asking students what they think about whether they are actually part of the free market and they want to be left alone by the government, or whether they actually want government control. So socialism typically means that the state controls the taxation and the money, and then they distribute as they see fit. So can we trust politicians to do that? Can we trust the government?
Oh, can we trust the government to, well, the current government or government in general?
Just government in general and politicians. Can we trust them to do the right thing with our money?
I mean,
from a high taxation perspective. So if there's a low taxation government, then it's limited government economically. Regardless of what they're doing culturally, it's limited economically. So which world would you rather live in? When you look at your pay packet with your high-flying career from Oxford, and you say 50-60% maybe has gone on tax, but the government decide where it goes?
To be honest, I don't know. I feel like until that actually happens to me, then I probably haven't. I don't know if I trust the government.
It's happening to you right now, love. It's literally happening to you right now. It's happening as we speak. It's been happening for the last 50 years.
I don't know if I trust the government right now.
And with your money, not just trust, but with your money as well.
Yeah, probably not.
So if you don't trust the government with your money, that means you're a capitalist. You're a capitalist, meaning you would prefer to be able to control your money on your own without intervention. Again, these kids are being brainwashed to believe something that they cannot even define.
Okay, so let me leave you this thought. A lot of people I speak to, I say capitalist or socialist, and they say socialism. Actually, they might not be a socialist, but actually rather it's in opposition to unregulated capitalism because they see the inequality in the world.
Right. So what are you?
I'm pro-free market. So we should be able, the government should not interfere with us. They should not interfere with you and I getting on. We feed our families, feed ourselves, and we get on. So limited government in that regard. But we see that socialism's trending and on the rise again, which is rebrands itself every 10 to 15 years.
So are you a bit slightly concerned by that?
Slightly concerned about what's getting pumped out of our universities, yeah. So we work exclusively on university campuses to try and get raw data. Yeah, and it's worrying. And a lot of people, the other thing they say before we close is, I'm not sure, I need to do more research. But they off the bat, they'll say, I'm a socialist, or I'm more socialist. But actually, socialism's never worked anywhere in the world.
Interesting. Okay.
If you guys want to understand just how much socialism does not work, I highly advise you guys to watch this video. This is one of the best videos I've ever made in terms of just like the quality. It breaks down just how much socialism will continue and will always be a failure. I look at it from the perspective of Africa. So obviously when Africans got their independence in the 60s, they had all this freedom, but yet they still experienced this economic decline. And in fact, they were doing worse than they were before colonialism, during colonialism, sorry. And this was when they had their freedom. This was when they had their rights. And what happened during the 80s and 70s is they started to become dependent on these colonialist countries. Why? Because they decided to take the socialist route. And when you look at the colonial countries that decided to take the capitalist route, for example, I believe is Singapore, they have a higher GDPR than the UK right now as we speak. So socialism never works. But when you tell people this, they do not care.
So I find that some people often break it down. They say they define it different.
I just know she's going to say something with that haircut. I just know she's going to say some BS with that haircut. I know it. It's always the white ladies with these type of haircuts. Sorry. If you had this haircut, I'm sorry.
And socialism and all this other type of stuff. And I say, look, socialism means the government control a huge amount of taxation and then they distribute equally from there. Would you agree that's what socialism, in a bite-sized chunk format to a child, would that be socialism as far as you're concerned?
I think
redistributive wealth?
to some extent, yeah. I don't think I know enough to say enough about it in the sense that, like, yeah, like I don't feel confident.
So if you don't know enough, why are you something that you don't know enough of? Again, like this video, this is why I had to make this video, because this video is the perfect example of just how much Gen Z, millennials, I don't know when this was posted, we have been brainwashed. We are robots. We are slaves. We just believe things because we are told to believe it, and yet we can't define it.
Yeah, like I don't feel confident enough in, like, yeah, I don't know that much about it, but like I think so.
Okay, so
yeah.
Okay, no, that's interesting. So when you say you're not a capitalist, you're a socialist, what is about socialism that you like? You're not a capitalist, you're a socialist. What is about socialism that you like?
I just really don't like capitalism, and I think that people deserve to be treated fairly, and there should be less inequality in society.
Capitalism is as fair as it gets. I hate when people say capitalism is unfair. If you was to define capitalism at its core, capitalism is basically the concept that you get exactly what you put out or what you work for. That's capitalism. For example, my sister, she goes to the gym 5 times a week, sorry. I go to the gym probably like twice a week. I'm just always busy on YouTube. So I can't now sit here and say it's unfair that my sister's skinnier than me. No, it's completely fair. She put in the work. I didn't put in the work. We both had the same 24 hours.
There should be less inequality in society.
Okay, so when you say you don't like capitalism, are there companies that you're thinking of that you know of where you think actually that's workers aren't treated fairly, for example? They're all paid a salary, but I presume you're saying not enough. Like,
yeah, and I also just think like political structures and kind of like legislations and stuff that are in place and the kind of ideologies behind it. Of like the kind of meritocratic sort of thing of like, oh yeah, if you like work for it, you can get it, which then kind of completely ignores the fact that everyone's coming from a different starting place and there are lots of other things that can get in the way.
You don't believe in meritocracy?
Not in the extreme sense. Like, obviously there are certain things you can do, but I think as an idea it's very toxic and just not great.
So what about all the students at Oxford University, the most prestigious university in the world?
Yeah.
How would you feel it? How does that link to what you're saying there? So if you're here at Oxford University, that's about as privileged and as special as it gets.
And it's not like there are things that they're supposedly trying to do to reduce like the unfair things, but the truth of the matter is people are coming from different backgrounds, and there are people who are much more likely to get in just from where they've come from, and there are people who work ridiculously hard and don't get in here. And also, like, with interviews on the day, like, you could be having a bad day and not get in. Like,
In regards to
Did she just say you would have a bad day and not get in? Oh gosh. So because you had a bad day and you flopped the interview to get into Cambridge, that now means it's unfair. No, prepare yourself. Put your feelings to the side. Put your emotions to the side. Focus on the task at hand, which is getting into Cambridge, and be successful at your interview. But the reason why people don't have this mindset is because they have that socialist mindset of, well, it's everybody else's responsibility to make sure that I get into a certain position, and not actually it's my responsibility to make sure I get into a certain high position. So I knew she was going to say something with that haircut.
would you be a fan of high taxation as a socialist by saying the government, we trust them, we trust politicians, and the government will redistribute effectively, rather than the free market argument, which is the government should be limited economically and we should be left to get on with our own devices?
This is why Gen Z, I'm so sorry to say this, has to be one of the dumbest generations, because we are the most anti-government generation. We're always saying we don't trust the government, F the government, we don't trust the government, da 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 da. We're so anti-government, but in the same sentence we'll say that we are socialists. Do you not realize that socialism basically means allowing the government to have full control over your life, over your tax, over your finances, over your healthcare, over your decisions, over your education, over your children's education? That is socialism. But because we've been so brainwashed to believe things without actually doing the research.
again, this is not something I claim to know very much about. I'm not as educated on politics as I would like to be.
Sure.
And like, it's not something, but like, I don't know enough about how it works and like the ins and outs of it. But I would say that I think like,
at least she's honest. At least she's honest about she doesn't know enough. But if you don't know enough, then why are you a socialist?
Isn't it economic?
So you've got cultural, societal, and economic. So I mean it in an economics capacity when I say, are you a socialist or a capitalist? Socialist being state control, high taxation, the government, we trust the politicians, we trust the government, and then they they distribute the money as they see fit. Free market economics is you, me, our families are left alone to go and do what we want, essentially. I'm not saying that there would be no regulation, but the idea of capitalism is that idea. We go and create companies, we create jobs, we create wealth.
Yes.
So you would say, based on that, you're a socialist, economically?
I think there should be the free market with government intervention such that where you end up isn't dependent on where you start.
Does that make you a capitalist then?
Sure, but with
Regulation.
and a level of government intervention.
And what about you?
Yeah, I feel like talking more about like the taxation point of view, I feel like taxes is a very important issue, and especially because I'm from Italy, and in Italy there is a big issue with taxes, and so the fact that not everyone like has to tax based on their actual income, and that is like something that I feel like should be solved, and that's why like I would tend towards more like socialist point of view.
Yeah, they always use this argument that it's not fair that rich people are not taxed enough. The reason why rich people, I personally believe, should be taxed less is because rich people contribute the most to society. They contribute the most. For instance, my 9 to 5 that I'm working at now, my manager, he's well off. He's doing well for himself. But if you pay attention to his work ethic, this man literally works from like 7 a.m. to 3 a.m. in the morning. I promise you, he does not sleep. The man does not sleep. So when I was younger, again, I used to identify with socialism, and I used to have this image in my mind that rich people are just chilling. They're just relaxing. They're just going on holidays. They're just flying private jets. And in fact, it's the actual opposite. Most of these rich people, aka someone like my manager, they are working literally 22 hours in the day. They don't get rest. They don't get rest. Why? Because they are contributing so much into the society. For example, someone like Elon Musk, look what he's contributed to society with his Tesla cars and all of this AI. AI has made my life so much easier. Let him have his little tax cut. You know, Apple, I cannot live without my iPhone. I literally shoot my YouTubes on my iPhone. We all know we cannot live without our phones. He should deserve that tax cut due to how much he's contributed. So I feel like entrepreneurs, millionaires, billionaires, trillionaires, they contribute the most to society. They are the people who are keeping the economy afloat, essentially. So to say it's not fair that they're not being taxed enough, that's why we are seeing so many millionaires, not even millionaires, but even university students leaving the UK. They're all leaving. All these entrepreneurs, they're leaving the UK. They're investing their brains. They're investing their innovative capacity into other countries rather than here in the UK because the tax is too high. So what's going to happen in the next 20 years? This country is going to be a hole. It's going to be a hole.
Why do you think that they don't do? We hear this argument a lot about Amazon is always brought up, Google, Apple. Why do you think they're not taxed, regardless of how much they should be taxed? Why do you think they're not taxed enough? Take Volkswagen, for example. I mean, you guys know how many people these employ. Do you know how many people? I may not be in favour of Amazon at all, but they employ 650,000 people worldwide. Yeah. Those people have jobs, regardless of whether it's right or wrong or whatever. They then feed their families from that. So, in terms of the example with Italy about the business owners and the rich being taxed further, do you think there's a reason why they aren't taxed by the state, as you say?
Because they are bringing in like the income and like the possibilities to everyone to work. But like,
there we go. We got there in the end. There we go. The reason why they are not taxed a lot is because they contribute the most to society. They bring the most jobs. They bring the most products. They are the reason why we have a high GDPR. They are keeping the economy afloat. That's why they shouldn't, in my opinion, be taxed so highly.
I don't think that, while this is true, I don't think that it's like right. So it is a difficult situation, but like from an idealistic point of view, like I don't think that this is like the way it should be. So like idealistically, I would like everyone to be taxed in a fair way because there are people who are suffering from it. So,
and this is why socialism doesn't work, because this idea that everyone should start at an even playing field and everyone should finish at an even playing field is so unrealistic. There's so many factors at play: work ethic, commitment, innovation, education. There's so many things that happens to a person. My siblings, for example, we've all been raised by our two parents. We've all been educated by our two parents. We've all read the Bible every morning with our two parents. We all went to church every morning. We all received the same parenting by parents. But every single one of me and my siblings are different. It's insane. Every single one of us are different. One of us is very quiet. One of us is very loud. One of us loves music. One of us loves books. We are so different. Why? Because there's so many factors that happens that are at play. This idea that, oh, socialism is great because everyone should start at an even playing field, but not everyone's going to finish at an even playing field. Okay, what people need to understand is that democracy has never offered or promised equal outcome. It promises equal opportunity, but not an equal outcome.
Are you a capitalist or a socialist?
I have no strong political opinions.
No, but more economics based.
Well, I don't really do much research into it, but I'd say I probably lean more left than I do.
Yeah, see, the fact that he's not even doing research into it is appalling. It's appalling. I always tell young people, take an interest in politics, or politics will take an interest in you. Take an interest in economics, take an interest in social issues before it takes an interest in you. And this is what's happening right now. So many young people, I don't pay attention to politics. I don't really into it. And now it's taking an interest in you because you're saying you believe in something and you don't even know what you believe in. Why? Because they didn't take the time to take an interest what agenda the establishment is trying to push. They haven't even taken an interest on the ideologies that these parties are trying to put. Take an interest, because not only will it affect you, it will affect the generation that your kids grow up in. This is appalling. Let me go into the comments. One person said, proof that a university education doesn't make a person smart. Another person said, can't define socialism, but definitely identifies as a socialist. These people are dumb. This is supposed to be the university of the brightest young brains. Heaven help us. I don't gamble, but I would be prepared to bet all of their parents are not socialists. That's another thing. Most of us people in Gen Z, a lot of Africans, a lot of Indians, a lot of Caribbeans, they moved here to the UK because of its capitalist ideology. Okay, because back home, again, watch my documentary on Africa. It was peak. A lot of Africans suffered because we decided to take the socialist route of doing or running our country after colonialism rather than capitalism. They'll scream it from a crowd but fold like a lawn chair when questioned alone. Exactly. These will be the same people that will be out there screaming and supporting all these socialist parties at Westminster, but they don't know what they're supporting. Take an interest in politics, or politics will take an interest in you.
Sure, so I think when asked that question, people often say, I'm not into politics, but economically, we talk about free market versus more state control based, and people talk about Scandinavia and other such parts of the world where the government have tried to control things before, or they form like a...
The way he's looking away, you can tell he just wants to run. He's like, I don't understand this vocabulary.
Obviously, there's certain elements of like social mobility that need to be promoted. And I think the way that the current system is going, it's not exactly aiding in that, and especially with the cost of living crisis, there have been so many issues arising with people unable to afford their bills and their homes.
Yeah, they're not able to afford their bills and their homes because your tax is too high. And the reason why your tax is too high is because your government is intervening too much in your money. The reason why it's intervening too much in your money is because you guys keep voting in the socialists.
Give you an example, just one, you've been great, one example of where the government is deciding where the money goes. So that's state-controlled items. You have diversity managers working in the NHS. So in terms of state control and socialism, we are living in a lot of that Tory socialistic world, believe it or not. So diversity managers currently exist on 60 NHS. So the NHS, the left would argue the NHS is on its knees. We need to give it even more money, because more money than God's not enough, apparently. You've got diversity managers on £66,000 a year, and feel free to fact-check me on that.
By diversity manager, what are you referring to?
I have absolutely no idea what they do. I agree. It's insane, but they exist, and they're on 66 grand a year.
Don't spin what I'm saying.
66,000 on diversity management. 66,000 on diversity management. 66,000 is being used to teach people how to hire people based on their skin color. Not because they're competent, not because they're educated, but because of their skin color. And that's how your socialist government is using your money, my friend.
So I just don't have... Well, this is something that maybe should be researched before asking questions.
Diversity. You're asking me what diversity manager does. I don't know. I wouldn't do that, but I presume it's something to do along the lines of diversity, inclusion, and equality, right? It's diversity. So diversity means different skin colours, different backgrounds, different faiths,
which is very important. And to be fair, giving a set amount of value for that is not really acceptable. And in terms of, I have no values in my mind about how much people should be paid, because I don't think that's a question that should necessarily be asked. I think it's in reference to, we've seen with the nurses' strikes, they are clearly unpaid.
If I was Nick Tenconi, I would literally ask this guy, imagine if the Cambridge University decided to replace your place at Cambridge University with an Indian guy who got D's and E's all throughout GCSEs in secondary school because he's Indian and he deserves it. He would be peed off. But this is what's happening. This is what's happening with this DEI and inclusion. Literally millions is being spent on teaching people how to pick people for jobs based on their skin color and not because they're competent. And I find that so dumb, so offensive. For example, my dad, I always give the example of my dad. My dad literally went from a bin man all the way up to a doctor. And that took him, maybe 20 years to do that? He worked his way to do it. There was no, because you're African and you came from Congo, we're just going to give you a job. No, work your way up to it. And he's been able to save probably a lot of lives due to the fact that he spent those 20 years studying, not just being picked because, oh my gosh, we feel sorry for you, you're black. It's ridiculous. But that's how your socialist government is spending your money, my friend.
Taking away money from a role that is very important is then the right option, when there are other places where, say, that money could come from.
So you'd be pro, so simple question, simple answer, you'd be pro something like a £66,000 a year salary, which is enormous, I think, going to something like diversity managers when we have the crisis we have. You'd be okay with that? Your opinion?
Well, it's
depending on the role.
I think you can focus on the notion that they're getting 66 grand, which is. I think
it's a lot of money. I think that's a lot.
It's a fair amount of money, but I'm not the sort of person to say whether that is right or not.
Yeah, for him. Oh my gosh. How can you sit here and say I'm not the person to say how my tax money is being spent? Do you not realize that 66,000 is part of your tax money? What is wrong with Gen Z? Why are we not serious? Why do we not take how our money is being used seriously? It blows my mind. It is not for me to be spent. Of course it has to do with you. It's your money.
Who is more involved in government to see if that money, but 66,000 is minimal compared to other places.
Okay, but in terms of giving government control and giving the state control, that means we trust politicians and their decisions and what they do with the money.
Well, no. Well, that's the thing. It's not a great system.
But just look at how nervous he is. How nervous he is to just answer a simple question, meaning he's so uncertain. And it's the case for all of these students. They were so uncertain. They can't answer a question directly with information, with facts, with reason.
Who should we listen to?
We should listen first and foremost to our own experience. You seem to act as if there must be alternative saviors. We should stop looking for saviors. I mean, the society has not existed for thousands of years because it had a succession of saviors. It's existed because it has institutions and processes through which people can realize their own goals.
No, I understand that, but you are attacking people who would like to lead us and tell us how the world works.
No, they don't want to tell us how the world works. They want to take over the decision for us. It's the notion that ordinary people cannot be trusted to make the decisions that they've been making, but these must be preempted either by judges in the case of crime, by the schools taking over the indoctrination of other people's children behind their back and against their protests, or what was the other one? The family, taking money from the taxpayers and subsidizing behavior, as well as encouraging it and legitimizing behavior that has turned out to be enormously self-destructive.
Guys, I'm going to end this video by saying two things. First of all, take an interest in politics, take an interest in economics, take an interest in social issues before it takes an interest in you. The second thing I want to say is Oxford University, if you are looking for a lecturer, the girl's right here. Anyways, guys, if you guys want more videos like this, like and comment. Bye, guys.